Subscribe or you'll be visited by the toll troll. What would the 2025 version of this book be like? I'm guessing instead of 4%, it's now the 3.5% rule. Would you swap out index funds/real estate for BTC? Long-term hold. Would you work part-time jobs for fun once you hit your financial independence number? What would the 2025 version of this book be like? Find any means possible of holding and staking 10K link. The only way to get rich these days is play the market. Most common way for 99% of people to get rich. Works best if you have a high-paying job so you can put more money in market. Become sports, movie or music star. Inherit wealth. Get perfect grades and bend the knee to globos so you get admitted to a prestigious Ivy League university in which you can network with tiny hats. I am taking an aggressive prong approach. 401k, Roth IRA, my pension from my company. I'm lucky to have this, Social Security, if that still exists. Future, endeavors are XRP, long hold. I need BlackRock Energy and Fidelity funds. So far I'm just working a good paying job and investing 50% of every paycheck, 3 to 4k monthly to BTC. I guess I'll just keep doing this for however long it takes, 70k worth so far. I've also thought about diversifying into ETFs like VTI, but if it's really worth it compared to BTC. I'm just maxing out my 401k contribution and keeping the funds in VTI for now, 80k worth so far. Basically me except no Roth, no pension, and not betting on Social Security to still exist. Instead of XRP it's BTC. Normal months for me are 4,350 bring home after taxes healthcare, 401k/Roth investment, 6,500-ish on those big 3 paycheck months. What I need to do is find something solid that I can dump $1,000 in and get some serious movement in. Any ideas? Bitcoin is not an option. I'm not buying the mountain and being bagholder. I don't know, man. I'm currently just stacking cash and leaving everything I've bought alone. I'm guessing there's some giga dump next year to buy everything cheap. 1k isn't really going to move the needle, but if can sustain that for a decade or two you're set. You probably need to increase your income. Dumping 2 to 3k plus a month means you can retire much sooner, maybe within 7 to 10 years instead. Become sports, movie or music star. Gatekept BS that isn't for you. The modern equivalent is obviously become influencer. My mortgage is only like $575 a month and I drive a Honda and have no debt. I splurge on Amazon, but I'm still stacking $1,500 a month after all my expenditures, includes my Amazon fund. I need a plan. Tell me what I should be doing. A Moody fund? Or what? I read this book 10 years ago and the core of it is still relevant, namely, minimize expenses, maximize income. Cutting expenses is twice as effective as increasing income. Invest savings to guarantee a safe withdrawal rate. Some other autism from the book like the Moo sustainability stuff is kind of silly, and the particular investment advice, stocks, bonds, real estate, etc., is outdated. An update to this book would have to include crypto, at least BTC, but also alts in my opinion. In fact, I think there should also be more in-depth discussions of private equity, startups, and options markets. Tied into this should be a discussion of AL and its impact on industry as well as investment. Due to automation, there needs to be more emphasis on entrepreneurship and building skills that AL cannot deprecate. In some ways the focus of this book and the lean FIRE approach more generally to minimize expenses is even more relevant today due to inflation than it was back then. It's harder, relatively speaking, to make money right now, but if you can cut expenses it's even more effective right now because things are more expensive. TLDR of the OP's book for the modern era is the following. 1. Minimize expenses. 2. Maximize income. 3. Invest in BTC during bear markets. During bull markets, simply stack USD in a high-yield savings account or money market fund like SPACs, then when the bear market comes again invest this USD into BTC. Be schizo. Get neatbucks. Retired.jpg. What do you anons do for a living? I work in tech. About 7 years full-time experience, so shouldn't have any issues picking something else if needed. As for BTC, do you bother selling? I mean, if you time it all right you can at least double your stack. Risky, especially with ETFs. There is a chance that the bear markets are more muted, or the timing may be thrown off a bit. I don't like the luck aspect of timing the market, so I would rather just stack BTC during the bear using the USD I stacked during the bull. The boomers had real estate, we have BTC, it's a forever hold type asset like VOOVTI, etc. That's a good start and core investment advice, but I do think there should be more elaboration on other strategies further along the risk curve, encompassing DeFi, alt/startups, options, etc., and most importantly risk management as a general framework. And a L, as I wrote before. Maybe it's outside the scope of the work, but I'd argue it's more relevant today than ever and in 10 more years will be fundamental. Cutting expenses is twice as effective as increasing income. How is this true? Your cost of living has a minimum to it where further cuts lead to significant pay, while increasing income is in theory infinitely upwards. Let's assume you work one day job and cut costs reasonably so your saving and thus investing potential is half your income. You could cut further, really degrade your quality of life and increase that investing part of your paycheck to 60% of pay, thus increasing your investing 20%. Or alternatively you take a second night job, paid worse but now your total income is 170% while your cost of living is still 50%, thus meaning your investing is now 120% of your day job paycheck. Major increase, and this just keeps escalating once either side biz income or investing/yield income is reinvested unless cutting expenses refers to lifestyle inflation. Don't ever do that unless truly made it from investing alone. Especially with ETFs there is a chance that the bear markets are more muted. Not true. The price is always determined by a small portion of coins actively traded on exchanges. ETFs, if hodling, are no different than lost coins in past cycles. That doesn't change the price in the current moment anymore. Just as a reminder, there are 4 to 5 million of perma-hodled coins right now, and that didn't stop bear markets from being brutal. The 2025 version. Look at your feeble portfolio and then invest in gun coin and unhero yourself for failing to make it on any of the things that pump like fart coin, Trump, frog coin, Arrow or any of the other big coins of the last 2 years. Your cost of living has a minimum to it where further cuts lead to significant pay, while increasing income is in theory infinitely upwards. This is true, but what he means is that if you cut an expense and invest it instead, you simultaneously are paying less per month/year and generating returns on that money as if you increased your income by that much. It becomes apparent in the mathematics relating savings rate to time to FIRE. So the optimal strategy, assuming you want to FIRE as quickly as possible, is to first minimize your expenses to the absolute bottom achievable and then maximize your income as much as possible. Of course it's theoretical and the Spartan lifestyle gets old fast, which is why I'm not a lean FIRE advocate like Jason, but it's nevertheless sound. I think that FIRE guy stated somewhere that he had a nest egg of something like $400,000 at the time he wrote the book, which I saw after reading it and which felt like it somehow completely invalidated everything he said. The book discusses a lot of stupid micro-lifestyle deflation tricks to reduce cost of living, when instead the author and his readers could have put in a few years of serious work to build a career and make way more than $400,000. He held a physics degree after all and could probably easily have gone to some bugman company or investment bank or similar for a few years instead of focusing on stupid shite like repairing his own clothes to avoid buying new ones and save a few bucks. Here's my progress after the last year or so of diligently tracking. Aiming to get to 2 million, but the time I am 40 and then stop working in lame tech and switch to something more chill. No, it's still faulty math as cutting costs becomes exponentially harder the more you do it, while increasing income doesn't really if you switch away from waging as main source of income. Always focus on increasing income. Your time in a day is limited and doing regarded things to cut costs will be more detrimental and reduced earning potential. The book was published during the stable boring times of Obama when stocks were rebounding off their lows, bonds were still decent, and the global situation was rather predictable. The proto-woke movements of Tumblr and Spitfire pre-MAGAs of the Tea Party days were just a distant whisper you could tune out. Ah, what a time. But really, the whole FIRE movement then became popular purely off stable high-paying jobs, relatively good cost of living in most places, and the end of affordable housing. Plus this sense that nothing dramatic ever really happened in the world to reach into your personal life and frig you. The funny thing, it's not clear it was even workable then. Fisker wound up getting bored and going back to work, not to mention making some coin off his blog. Ditto for Mr. Money Mustache, the other apostle of FIRE, who got to enjoy retirement off fat blog revenue. He admitted to doing odd jobs for cash as well and eventually got cucked in divorce. Never mind the fact that retirement made him too boring to make his wife's pink snapper tingle. The truth is it became too boring for him, so he and his FIRE comrades turned the whole thing into a new job of sorts. I say that with no hatred, just an interesting observation. These dudes helped give mid-wit IQ normies a good reason to save, even if it was distant hopium soon obliterated by Trump COVID Biden. An updated version of this movement would be much more extreme and conservative. No bonds/cash. Heavy US equities with an emphasis on tech/AI. 5 to 10% for gambling on riskier stuff like crypto or options. Roughing it in some hellish boring flyover places like Wyoming or Iowa if you ever want to own a house. Got admitted to a prestigious Ivy League university. Had all the opportunity in the world to network with rich, powerful people. Didn't know what to do with it, graduated with a mid-level internship, have never spoken to a single person from college after graduating. Occasionally I'll look up people from my university and ponder how badly I effed up compared to them. Wound up getting bored and going back to work. This is the cope projected outward to save his face. He is actually in desperate need for cash. Nobody goes willingly back into the cage after having tasted freedom, nobody. If he was bored rather than broke, he would get a hobby or start a business instead. I still like FIRE as a concept. The boredom problem seems way easier to solve than needing to work for income. It's not faulty, you're talking about something else. Of course there is a limit to how much you can cut costs, the point is to cut your excess spending to reach that limit so you aren't wasting money. You're essentially highlighting the main philosophical difference between so-called lean FIRE and fat FIRE doctrines, namely the latter just cares about increasing income solely because they want to live luxuriously while the former is more Spartan. The fact remains that cutting an expense and investing the money instead is equivalent to an income increase of the same amount, and it lowers your expenses going forward, which accelerates your time to FIRE, hence why it's more effective than raising your income alone by the same amount. Whether it's easy or hard to cut an expense or increase your income is immaterial to what I'm saying. The theoretical optimal strategy remains to cut your expenses to the limit and thereafter maximize your income. It's still possible to FIRE, but the predominantly Reddit-brained followers of the movement are not equipped for it. Actually, one reason why I like the FIRE book is that it was written by a physics autist who very early in the book stipulates that the specifics of what he's written there will very likely be outdated in the future, but that his goal would also be to delineate the first principles that would allow non-regards to figure shite out for themselves. Like I said before in this thread, the main ideas of the book are still valid, it's just that nowadays it's harder to make money for myriad reasons, so one has to get more creative and think outside the box financially speaking. One does need to go up the risk curve a bit now to get real gains. Index funds function better as a safe asset like bonds used to. Also, the cost of living crisis necessitates heavy austerity or something more avant-garde like geographic arbitrage with a remote job. Plus whatever else you listed.